If you have questions for Sam, you can text him in at 916-339-1140 or get him in the chat. There he is with a strange purple glow coming off his glasses. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. If it is, thank you. It's Sam Amick from The Athletic. Good morning.
No, I'm not lighting the beam with my glasses.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. I was deciding, we got a haircut, but it's still bedhead. Like I got the beanie at the ready here. We can
no, it's fine.
Beanie,
it's fine. I mean, you got a little. Oh, there you go. There's the All-Star 2025 or 4 beanie.
This was 23.
23s.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it looks good. Looks good. I mean, you definitely. When you turn your head that way, it does look a little. It looks like there's a wave going on the right side of your head. But
no, baby. I don't really care. Let's do this.
You saw Mike Brown's comments towards De'Aaron Fox, but I want to go before that. I want to go to Fox's conversation with Draymond Green making the rounds, not just on his contract situation, but also both of them opining on how much love and respect, to paraphrase, that they have for Mike Brown. When you put those comments and then Brown's comments yesterday asking Fox publicly to step up, does it make a little bit more sense that maybe Brown feels comfortable enough to be able to say those things publicly about his star? I imagine, Sam, that wasn't just a whim by him.
Agreed. Although, can you please catch me up a little bit? I saw the headlines on the Mike comments and I know the gist of them, but give me a little more substance. I did not.
Yeah. Let me play him for you right now. Chris, can he hear? Yeah. Okay. Here's Mike Brown yesterday, specifically on
the reality of it is, it starts with me, it ends with me, but Fox has to step up. He's a great player, on the verge of being a superstar. And there are those guys, and there are the superstars that win at a high level. And part of his responsibility, starting with him, now that doesn't excuse Domas, that doesn't excuse DeMar, that doesn't excuse Malik, and even Keegan at a young age, doesn't excuse everybody. But you have a lot of responsibility if you're that guy, and he's that guy. And he can't be a part of not being locked in. And he damn sure can't be a part of letting it go if we're not as a team. And so the pressure is on me and the pressure is on him to go get it done.
There you go. Very to the point. I also noted when we went over these earlier, Sam, that he took accountability for himself first, then spent his time on Fox, but also made sure to, in order, mention Sabonis, DeRozan, Monk, and then Keegan Murray. And this sure does sound like a Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich style. If I can call those guys out, I can call anybody out type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's a lot of layers here. For one, I guess it was in October, if you remember, we wrote a pretty in-depth piece on the team. And De'Aaron said, like, almost verbatim these comments back then. Now, I will admit, in my line of work, there's nothing we can do about the fact that the printed word doesn't pop like a video where you're talking to Draymond Green, but it's the same messaging, which is right. Love it here, want to be here, but and I honestly think it's very fair. He's showing the love to the city and the market and the franchise, but admitting the obvious, which is that he's the type of player who is going to look at his career arc and make sure that, that he feels like he's in the right place for the long term. The Mike Brown component, what I find so interesting is that, yes, he's got a lot of leeway with De'Aaron, a lot of trust, a close relationship. These are not the type of conversations that are smart for coaches to get into. And I'm not the one that he did. Hypothetically, to me, if you had Mike talk about, like, hey, tell the truth. Who's 1 and who's 1A on this team? Like, I've actually always been of the mind that I think his answer would probably be De'Aaron first.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is not necessarily the way this team gets talked about. So what I like about his messaging is that you can tell there's a lot of nuance there. You can feel Mike telling De'Aaron, like, of course you have the right to speak for yourself. And this is me paraphrasing, interpreting, and the way you see your situation. But there could be a ripple effect with that. If you have a mentality of, if everything around me isn't good enough, then I'm going to reassess. Then you almost absolve yourself of the part that you play, the massive part that you play. So to me, this is Mike's way of just reminding him, like, there's a chicken or the egg thing here. Like, if the situation isn't enough to your liking, you are going to play a part in that. And so rather than kind of stand idly by and see how it goes, how about you go show the world that you are that guy? Because we know the parallels here are fascinating, because you've got Mike's history with the Warriors, Mike's history with Steph Curry, De'Aaron's close business ties and friendship with Steph Curry. He wants to be his own version of Steph Curry. He's talented enough, and to be that type of a guy for a franchise. And the fact that he's talking to Draymond, kind of adds that same layer to it. So I like it from Mike's standpoint. I have zero problem with anything De'Aaron has said. This is the NBA. The other side of this, just a final point, is that, and I've admittedly talked to a fair amount of people about this topic recently quite a bit. It's this new CBA, Dave. Mm-hmm. It's still kind of an underreported story. And this is just generally speaking about star players. It is just harder than ever to have other options, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So there is like this dynamic of like guys who might have gotten frustrated before or started looking at other situations before, I think are being educated on the fact that by and large, the best approach is to make it work where you are.
Well, with those comments then, and I'm not one to believe that there's a strategy and a PR background to everything. I'm not going to give that much credit, but it does make you wonder in this case, fans, radio hosts are saying this team, and have been saying from the jump, that this team came into the season woefully lacking in depth in the front court. Trey Lyles being injured certainly didn't help. Malik Monk starting seems to have helped, but there seems to be another piece to this puzzle, and that falls on Monte McNair. This is starting to sound strangely familiar to prior to the Halliburton trade, when the whole thing was it's paralysis by analysis for McNair and Wes Wilcox, and they're afraid to make the big move, and then they make the big move. I'm not saying that's on the horizon, but it shot across the bow, Sam, is too strong. But is this De'Aaron publicly sending a message in part saying, look, I want to be here? Monty, Vivek, we need a little bit of help, though.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, only De'Aaron knows. I mean, the timing is also the big thing here. Like, it's one thing to tell a reporter, what he and I talked about going into the season. They're in the thick of it right now, and so that part comes to mind as well. But yes, on the front office front, I mean, 'tis the season for star players to apply pressure. It just is. The Lakers are in town today. LeBron's been doing it for 20 years this time of year. And I think it's fair too, because if you're De'Aaron, like everything you just laid out, you do have a couple of years of, relative inactivity. If you're the star player looking at the roster, you have a Western Conference that is full of parity. And even though they have struggled, you look at the standings and really they are one nice winning streak away from being in a pretty good spot. And if you're him, you see that. So, maybe that does play a part. And, on top of that, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I believe his minutes are up significantly this year. And so you have kind of workload stuff where, they are having to carry a heavier load because of the lack of depth. So, we'll see what they do. I don't anticipate any star player pursuits by them, but certainly high level role players. A lot of, some of the names that are already out there. The Cam Thomases, the Dorian Finney-Smiths. I think, Mike would love something like that. I think De'Aaron would love something like that. Cam is a tricky one. And those are obviously guys from the Nets. I feel like Cam is on every team's list right now. So
yeah, he is.
But we'll see what they do.
De'Aaron Fox, to your point, a career high 35.9 minutes in 74 games last year. He is so far at 37.3, which would be about a little over a 4-minute jump off of his career average. And you're saying seeing the same minute jumps for Keegan Murray, for DeMar DeRozan, who always plays a ton of minutes, and for Domantas Sabonis. So they're certainly using that core quite a bit. Now, when we're talking about trades and trade season, let's get into that a little bit with the Kings, as Sam Amick of The Athletic joins us. Is your read, and of course these are always very difficult to read, that they're basically out shopping the Herder, whatever, future pick type of package? Or do you sense any sort of loosening whatsoever? Assuming, by the way, Fox, Sabonis, DeRozan, Monk are kind of pushed to the side. Do you see any sort of movement one way or the other on Keegan Murray's availability?
I don't. No, not personally. I think the Herder, Trey Lyles, and I need to get reacquainted with their pick situation.
They owe it's a top 12 it's a top 12 protected to Atlanta, I believe, this year, and then I don't know what the hell it is next year or whatever. So I think, and they owe pick swap to the Spurs, I think, from last summer, 2030. So that's what I know.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, picks are just as precious as ever these days, and so whatever they have available there is going to be.
Let me stop you. I'm sorry, because I'm glad you said that. I was going to follow that up, but you said it. You said picks are as precious as ever, as you know right now. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying over the last couple of years, we've seen the Donovan Mitchell, the Rudy Gobert, these 3-4 picks going out the window. And it seemed for a moment, at least, like the pick market was somehow being diluted. But now that we're a little zoomed out, you think that was more of an anomaly?
I do. Honestly, I think those front offices that, that the trades that you mentioned, they were in kind of, aggressive situations where they did what they had to do.
Yep.
But the structure of this CBA is that,
right.
Once you have 3 guys making 20 million plus, if not 30 million plus, filling that out roster wise around the edges, the mid-level is tougher than ever to have on your team. The 15 million a year guy, like you need, look at the Nuggets, for example. They get knocked on a lot for being a cheap team. They have one of the highest payrolls in the league.
Yeah.
Because they've got, Joker and Gordon and Murray and Michael Porter Jr. all making massive money. So in order to fill out the roster, that's why they have gone the way of the draft with the Julian Strathers and the Peyton Watsons and players like that. That's just one example. OKC is obviously the one kind of rewriting this script. They have drafted well. They're already an elite team, and they have 13 first-round picks through 2031. And Sam Presti, their GM, knows what he's doing when it comes to – I mean, it's all about this CBA and the way that it's structured. So, yes, picks are precious. The Kings – I mean, to your Keegan Murray question – it's interesting, and I think we're probably going to write about the Kings relatively soon here.
As you should.
Well, I don't want to give everything away, but I think that the discussion about his season and the defensive responsibilities and the potential impact that that's had on his offense, those things I've found really fascinating. But I do sense an internal appreciation, even though the offense has been a struggle. They are a middle of the road defense right now. Last time I looked, they were 13th.
Yeah, I think they're 14th today.
And Keegan, take Keegan Murray away, they're 22nd.
100%. I mean? Yeah.
And so I have not actually sensed panic, and probably tilting this more to I have a better sense on the coaching side of things. But I'm not sensing panic about Keegan. I'm sensing appreciation, really, and then patience with the rest of it. Maybe patience is too simplistic, but the panic is not what I got. Now, that being said, Keegan is, most teams have that guy where it's fine, you love him, but if you want to get something done, you got to give him up. But Keegan, to me, doesn't go out unless it is a star level player or maybe one tier below. But I don't see that happening right now.
Does Tyrese Halliburton being moved by Monty McNair inform at all your opinions on a guy like Keegan Murray or even other bigger names with the Kings?
I mean, potentially, but right now anyway, what I don't have and what I'm not hearing, not that I did at the time with this
Sure.
bonus thing. That's
Sure.
I guess is not a great answer, but is like I don't have the other name. Like
Yeah.
if you heard the name that they were pursuing,
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of. I mean, if they try to jump into the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes,
Right.
then it's like, well, you're losing Keegan. That's what's going to happen.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't see that calculus right now.
You said, sorry, I should have followed up with this. You said something during your last answer. You said, I have more clarity on the coaching side. What did you mean? I skipped over that. What did you mean by that?
No, just that some of the thoughts I was sharing were, as far as like the way the front office sees it versus the way the coach sees it. And there's a lot of crossover, certainly. But I've been out to practice a few times recently and connected with a few people and just have a decent sense of the mood on the coaching side and how they're seeing the team.
I was going to ask you, that was my next question specifically. I have it written down, was on the mood at Golden One Center overall. You have, some things you probably don't have clarity on, who does, but ownership mood, front office mood, player mood, coaching mood. We had discussed a hypothetical earlier today with this being the enter of trade season and the Lakers coming into town for a back-to-back, the hypothetical of the Kings losing both to the Lakers, falling to 6-10 at home, and how those are the types of things that send ownership and others into an absolute tailspin. What is your sense now on the mood as far as anything happening, panic? Has it changed over the last couple weeks? Has it increased? What's your overall sense?
Well, lightheartedly, I'll say, owners across the NBA, regardless of how their teams are playing, should be in a good mood this week whether Forbes or whoever came out with the valuations.
$900 million increase or $800 million increase year on year for the Sacramento Kings. I think 19%, which is right around what the raise you got last year, and how good that felt. That's a fine day for ownership, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what fans want to hear, because the fans' nightmare is just like, an owner who becomes apathetic because he's printing money.
Yeah, John Fisher.
Yeah, right. Welcome to Sacramento.
Yeah.
So the backdrop there is that. I also think, mood, I don't have total clarity on the ownership front. As of, this is pre-Vegas when I was around the Kings a little more. As of the, I guess 8 days ago, it wasn't, again, wasn't painting a picture of like blowing people up and losing his mind and saying heads got to roll. It's certainly a very popular question around the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't think this is sharing too much. I ran in, there's a few people on this list, so I can keep it anonymous. I ran into a former Kings coach recently, and it was like that familiar discussion of like, all right, well, who's Vivek going to come for? And so people are wondering, but it's, for one, if you go the coaching side, for what you just paid Mike a lot of money in terms of potentially, firing him. Never say never, but that's an expensive choice to make. And also you don't have a plan B that seems obvious right now in terms of a replacement. And then on the front office side, even with everything that we just chronicled, I think those guys are good with Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, and B, timing wise, it would be disastrous to try to put a new front office in at this point of the season, in my opinion. So, it feels like he's just going to ride it out and hope they turn things around. And I'm sure pressure will be applied internally in other ways, but not to, play the radio host, but I'm curious to throw it back at you. I mean, does that reconcile with your sense, or what do you think?
No, it does. Now, look, believe it or not, things like losing 2 at home to the Lakers and falling to 6-10 at home, those have, I think, real world consequences. Those are things that do tend to, and not that Vivek is some sort of inconsistent dude that's just prone to kicking indoors. That's just not his style. But I think if you're in that situation, fans are booing, people are upset, and the later I went over this a couple segments ago, Sam, but I refer to a lot of Kings games as what I call bit games, BITT. which are banana in the tailpipe games from Beverly Hills Cop, where you come out of the box, you suck, you catch up in the fourth but fall just short, and you believe in them, you fall for the banana in the tailpipe. You got fooled again by this team. Well, you can also have a banana in the tailpipe season, where when you wait too long and then now come March, all of a sudden they magically figure it out and they're fighting for a play-in or a one-and-done 8 seed. You're going to look back at how they started the season. So I do think there's a ticking clock there at some point. Like you said, never say never. But here's the other thing, and this is a long answer, but I want to see if you're on the same page with me. To your point earlier, the Kings are number 6 in the NBA in offensive rating. In fact, they're tied for 5th with Memphis. They are 14th in defensive rating, just a couple points behind the Bucks. Their overall net rating is 11th. And when you look at the teams below them in net rating, you have the Heat at 13-11, the Nuggets at 14-10. The Clippers at 15-12, the Bucks at 14-11, the Suns at 14-11. You have to go all the way down to 19th, where the Bulls are 12-15, to find another team under 500. My point is this: they're not making their 3-pointers at their own average rate. Their ratings are above what their record performance is. So without putting purple glasses on, if you dive into the analytics, it does seem like this team is underperforming what they should have, which you could take as a light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. But you got to finish games.
That's right. You got to start games too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I literally only watched like the last 2 minutes of that Denver game, and it was just painful. Because that's the kind of game you got to finish. That's a very good team. Denver is kind of finding its way. That could have made you feel like, hey, you're knocking off the Denver Nuggets. You couldn't be doing too poorly. Unfortunately, DeMar's got that late blunder and they drop it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, this schedule right now, these 2 Laker games, and if you want to add another emotional component to it, if Halliburton's Pacers come in here,
right,
and beat the Kings, and there's even layers to that one. As you talked about all of this, another place my mind went was that the irony of, as far as like moves that I think I'll put it this way, some player camps on the Kings might wish that they did in the past, right? Like Pascal Siakam represents one of those guys that they had a crack at. Now, granted, like I wrote at the time, Pascal didn't want to come, and that's a major factor. But Pacers are not obviously world beaters right now, and Pascal was not the guy that took them into title contender status as of now. But still, it's those type of guys that they don't have. So, the Kings are fascinating right now, because from Vivek to Mike to De'Aaron to all these different humans, they're all trying to look in the mirror and figure out what they are and where they're going, and if they want to keep rocking together, basically.
To your point on that Denver game, as we wrap up, Denver came out and outscored the Kings 41-21, and the Kings actually had to go on a little mini run at the end of the first to even bring it there. So the crowd was instantly kicked right in the junk out of the game after the first quarter. Kings are down 20. Over the second and third quarters, the Kings outscored Denver 82-55, including holding Denver to 21 in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, Denver comes back 34-26, but the Kings had a 10-point lead with 4 minutes left. Denver went 7-7 the rest of the way. You talked about the last play of the game, which DeMar just fumbled, but that's a microcosm. That's micro. Macro is they might have lost that game in the first quarter. So to your point, yeah, they got to finish games. They also got to start games. The signs are there, but you got to execute it on the floor. You
do. Yeah. I'll leave you with this. I know you got to go. Just general commentary. Isn't it hilarious? Yeah. Like this weird job that we have. I'm sitting there. It never ceases to amaze me. Like that. Like, what if there was an industry, Dave, where if you had 3 bad shows in a row, people just. If I wrote 3 garbage pieces in a row, I sometimes feel like we need to take a step back and acknowledge how bizarre it is that these are just a bunch of people trying to do their jobs, and we just micro analyze everything every 5 minutes. It does kind of crack me up.
You and I have known each other a very long time, so this will not surprise you. This is a bit I will do a few times a year on the show. Like, imagine in about an hour and a half, my show wraps up, and then as I go downstairs, I go into the conference room to where the media is gathered, Hey, Dave, that conversation with Sam earlier, there was a moment where you guys kind of talked over each other and weren't really clear on one of those points. Is that just chemistry between the two of you? Is there something going on? And then later you get asked on your side, hey, Dave said earlier that you and Sam just weren't on the same page for a few minutes of that interview. Have you considered maybe going to another radio show? Is there a problem there? We're sending each other messages through the media. Our agents are talking. I think when you apply the NBA or professional sports press conference dynamic to the real world, a teacher had a tough time with Johnny in class. Do you feel like you handled that right? And is Johnny salvageable, Mrs. Campari? What are your thoughts? And then the parents weigh in. It is kind of goofy that you and I have raised beautiful children who are on the verge or already in college, and our entire job is analyzing for the public dudes playing with balls. It's what we do.
You really did that, huh? Okay.
Well, I mean, let's not be juvenile, Sam.
Yes,
you know what I'm talking about.
Indeed. No, you're right, brother. I just, hey, you notice Amick wrote 2.2 stories a week last year. That's down to 1.7. Is he falling off?
or the other end, Sam averages 2.8 stories per week. He's up to 4.1 since the new editor came in. And let's be honest, Sam's not a spring chicken. Are those typing fingers going to make it all the way through to June?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel too bad. This is partly Steve Kerr's bit, and it's not a bit. It's true. This is why they make a ton of money. There's just so much interest in what they do. So I'm not mad at it, but we got to acknowledge it every once in a while.
I am off next week. Give my love. I'm sure we'll talk off the air to Emily and Landon and Ryder and the whole family. Have a great Christmas, my brother. Thank you for coming on each and every week.
Same to you guys. Appreciate you. Happy
right.
holidays.
Talk to you. My wife's name's Melissa, by the way. That's fine.
Dave.
That's all right.
The whole show. Love you. Melissa, thank you.
See you next week. See you in a couple weeks. Bye. That's Sam Amick of The Athletic. We'll take a break.